Those gallery lights glared down like judgment. I remember pressing my umbrella closed with trembling, rainwater running off onto the slick pavement as I made my way up the steps. Whenever I hear that echoing sound of water dripping, it takes me back to that first rejection. It was spring in São Paulo, 2010. I was 23, soaked through, clutching a battered portfolio to my chest. Through the glazed glass, a couple glanced at me, heads tilted. Probably mistaking me for a lost kid or, the old trick, someone delivering pizzas. Inside, the gallery was immaculate, a white-walled world, silent and chill as a morgue. João, the owner, was standing under a painting of an androgynous figure with bronze leaf swirling over the canvas, hands buried in his suit pockets. He couldn't even look me in the eye. I handed him a folder of my best sketches. He flicked through, the sound of pages, each more embarrassing than the last. He didn't smile. He let out this little sigh and said, "This isn't what we're looking for." Each word slow. "It's not sophisticated enough. Abstract art is a language, you know." I told him I'd worked all year, tried to describe the colors of broken glass on Avenida Paulista, how the early morning sun bled copper over old concrete. He nodded, eyes sliding off mine. I was dismissed within minutes. Later, through the window, I saw him showing one of my pieces to his assistant. His laughter muffled by glass and rain. Outside, the city was hissing, all bus exhaust and the crackle of rain on puddles. I walked the length of Rua Augusta in soaked jeans, portfolio bouncing against my thigh, every step eroding what little hope I had. When I got home, my mother was on the sofa shelling beans for feijoada. The smell of simmering pork clung to the gray kitchen tiles, and the TV was chattering in the background. She didn't look up when I came in, didn't ask how it went. She'd been through this song before. My older sister Paloma was scrolling through her phone at the table, thumbing through some gossipy WhatsApp group. She spotted the grief on my face. "So," she chirped, "did anyone say yes?" I shook my head. "Of course," Paloma said, tossing a bean in her mouth. "Why would they? Nobody wants paintings of rusty taxis and broken windows." She leaned forward. Bruno, why not get a real job? Dad has an opening at the pharmacy. I heard Ricardo needs a new shelf stocker." My mother was silent, letting Paloma handle the interrogation. She only pursed her lips, clattering beans in the bowl. I wanted to shout, to hurl something, but I sat there in my own sweaty, rain-damp clothes and ate in silence, letting their words congeal with the leftover rice on my plate. When I went to the bedroom I shared with my little brother, I sat at my desk with the single bulb yellowing the paper and tried to sketch, but I couldn't get my fingers to move. All I saw in my mind's eye was Joao's shrug. That was the first of many rejections. I applied everywhere I could, bars that hung works in dark corners, graffiti festivals, online competitions. Each time, silence or polite refusal. All my canvases stacked up in the closet, blocking the door. Mom started to nag, softly at first, then every other morning. "It's time to think of your future, Filho. I want to see you happy. Maybe you weren't born to be an artista." She'd never been cruel, but there was a special pain in seeing her faith wane. Dad barely spoke to me those days, just gave a gruff nod when I was home, left early for work. Sometimes I'd see him across the dinner table, staring at my stained hands, jaw tight, thinking, I don't know, maybe what a waste. The neighborhood, the tight-knit rows of concrete houses painted in faded pastels, everyone's business on full display made it worse. I'd run into old school friends at the bakery, holding fresh loaves beneath their arms, all working, all doing something. They'd smile in that careful way, ask if I was still chasing the dream. News spread. Bruno is still painting trash. Bruno spends more time alone with pencils than with people. I stopped going out except late at night, when the stores were shuttered and the city's noises were all muffled and half angry. One humid night, my best friend from childhood, Louise, came by with a six-pack under one arm. He sprawled on my mattress, shoes kicked off, and stared up at the water stains on the plaster ceiling. "Bruno, you ever think maybe it's not São Paulo that needs your art?" He sounded careful, the way people sound when they're sneaking an insult between sips of beer. "You think I should move?" I asked, tracing circles in the condensation from my can. "I don't know. Sometimes you have to play the game, brother. People don't want to see the world's ugly. They want something that makes them forget." "I don't pay for them," I said, more stubbornly than I intended. But after he left, his words clung to me like a sodden shirt. The next few years blurred. My family pressed me about steady work, hinting at call centers, delivery jobs. I tried waitering. Shaky hands and spilled drinks earned me a month's pay before I gave up. I painted at night, obsessively, everything I saw. The shine of headlights in rain, old men in prosaganes beneath jacaranda trees, girls in neon trainers dancing on cracked steps. Without money for canvases, I scavenged scrap plywood and old doors dumped in the streets. Sometimes I painted over whatever surface I could find, the grain and cracks giving the figures new life. Every time my mother's friends dropped by, Paloma would direct them away from my room like a crime scene. "Those are just Bruno's little doodles," she'd say. I overheard her one afternoon in the kitchen with an aunt. "If only he understood, talent is not enough. Artists don't eat in Brazil." But I kept at it. I don't know if it was delusion or stupidity. Maybe there's no difference. But something inside refused to die. My world was small but burning. By 26, I was still living at home, my paintings filling every spare corner, still the object of neighborhood mockery. My mother's health took a turn. Too many years on her feet, caring for all. I really did. 2 whole days spent staring at blank walls, walking the dirty corridor between my room and the kitchen like a ghost, convinced no one would notice if I just gave in. But on the 3rd day, that itch in my fingers returned. I opened my battered sketchbook and began drawing the street as it looked at dawn. The way light caught on the crumbling bricks and flickered across the faces just waking up. For the first time in months, I felt more like myself. It was around then that Julia called, the only girl from art school who'd kept in touch. She'd moved to Lisbon, but was back in São Paulo curating pop-up shows. On the phone, her voice was warm, comforting. "Listen, I always knew you'd never stop painting. Can I see something? Maybe I'll pitch you for an open spot next week." I almost said no out of habit, but instead I invited her over. She spent an hour in my room, walking around canvases propped on chairs, squinting at my makeshift art. She didn't make a single joke or pitying comment. She just nodded, sometimes murmured, sometimes smiled with her eyes. When she left, I felt somehow lighter. That week, Julia put a few of my pieces, especially the ones painted on old shutters, into a pop-up show at a coffee shop downtown. Nothing fancy. At first, nothing happened, but a week later she called again. "Someone wants to buy 2, maybe 3. He asked for more." I felt like my heart was breaking open. The world shifted on its axis. It was no instant miracle, no overnight transformation, but that was the first domino. The next year was a slow fire. More shows, sometimes only one painting sold, sometimes none. But one night, a quiet woman with thick glasses bought a painting for twice the listed price. She said she'd never felt something so sad and beautiful in a cityscape. "It's how I feel every Monday," she joked. I understood her. The city is beautiful and tragic, both. Word got around, mostly thanks to Julia. Her faith in me was stubborn. She became my champion, emailing galleries and plugging my work online. Every type of client came. Architects wanting murals, rich parents wanting something urban for their condos. I painted for whoever asked, learning to bend but not break. By the time I hit 30, I had a tiny studio, shared with 3 other artists in Villa Madalena. A trickle of money, a growing following on Instagram. Nothing huge, but a real life made of sketches and pigment. My mother still didn't brag to the neighbors, but she stopped sighing every time I walked in the door. Paloma was busy with 2 kids now, always tired, no time to needle me. Sometimes my dad asked, in his quiet way, "So who bought this one?" He never called my work doodles anymore. Then, last summer, the São Paulo Museum of Modern Art, the big leagues, put out an open call for a residency. I hesitated, remembering all those rejection nights. But Julia bullied me into it. They want new faces. They want your São Paulo. I sent in 3 paintings, heavy with the city's weight. Dawn over Consolação, a bus window, water streaming down glass and blurring the world. Kids barefoot on a rooftop at sunset. For weeks, nothing. I forgot about it, losing myself in commissions, until that email arrived in my inbox when I was still half asleep on a Monday. Congratulations. Bruno Cesar, you've been selected. I read it 5 times before I let myself believe. Then I danced, whooping so loud that the neighbors banged on the wall. The residency changed everything. Not just grants, space, materials, but respect. Critics came.